Hey guys, it's Dr. Horzempa again, and wanting to talk today a little bit about caloric restriction. So, caloric restriction has been around a long time. It's in the literature. Multiple animal models have shown extension of lifespan with caloric restriction. So looking at mice, up to monkeys, yeast species. So, multiple types of organisms, not just mammals. And, the question really has always been, will this work in humans? And nobody really knows, but a lot of people are speculating that it might not. And the reason is because these lab animals are living longer, but they're also protected in many ways. They're kind of living in a bubble. And they're protected from a lot of things like accidents. They're protected from infections. And if you have free living humans, who are susceptible to these things, these real world complications, it's thought that you may be more likely to succumb to a really bad infection or an accident or fall or something like that, as opposed to lab animals, which are protected from these things. So I don't know that I can advocate for caloric restriction, and I don't advocate most of my patients to do this. But then the question is, we know there's benefits to caloric restriction too, and how can we get some of those benefits? So we know that mTOR is downregulated in caloric restriction, which is a key driver of aging. We know IGF-1 is downregulated in caloric restriction. Again, another aging accelerator pathway. We know that things like SIRT1 are upregulated, which again is a kind of an anti-aging pathway. We know that mitochondrial function is improved in caloric restriction. There's a lot of good things happening. Okay, so the question is, how do we get those good things while avoiding the bad things? And again, I think the bad things in caloric restriction are probably a loss of quality of life. Hormones are affected. Estrogen, testosterone, they're lowered. That affects quality of life. Thyroid function is affected. That's going to affect quality of life. So, caloric restriction may produce longevity in humans, but you're likely to have lower energy, be cold, have a loss of muscle mass, and have a risk of infections. Again, we don't want those things. So how can we get the good without getting the bad? And I think from my research, and certainly a lot of other people have come to the same conclusion, that fasting is going to offer similar benefits. Now, which type of fasting? That is really up for debate. And certainly the ketogenic diet is another option that may offer similar benefits to caloric restriction, again, because it's mimicking fasting. But if we get into, what type of fasting is going to do this? Certainly there's evidence that, time-restricted feeding is going to offer some of these benefits. So, this is being called intermittent fasting, where you're eating most of your calories in about a 6 to 10 hour stretch, and fasting for the remainder of that window. Alternate day fasting, where you fast one day and then you eat as much as, eat to hunger on the days that you can eat. We call that ad lib. Fasting mimicking diets seem to have some evidence in this respect for activating some of these favorable pathways. So which of these is going to have the best effect, and the effect that most approximates caloric restriction, I think is up for debate at this point. But probably it's going to be some combination of a ketogenic diet along with intermittent fasting, and possibly doing fasting mimicking diet cycles. And that's kind of how I'm parsing this out with a lot of my patients. Again, this is early on in this scientific literature, so we don't yet know how all of these are going to optimize in the same fashion as caloric restriction. But again, it's probably going to be some combination of these things, along with certain supplements or medications which also activate these same anti-aging pathways, or downregulate these pro-aging pathways. So, it's something that is really interesting to me, and I'm incorporating into my practice. Certainly we're going to get more and more literature on this in the future, and hopefully I'll have more solid guidelines for people in the future. But, as of now, talk with your healthcare provider, see if you're a candidate for doing some of these fasting protocols, and start playing around with it and see what effects you get. So hope everyone has a great weekend. Bye.